Go ahead. You're all set.
All right. Thank you all for joining our Backup and Disaster Recovery webinar. I'd like to introduce you to our two speakers. One is Randy Marcotte, who will be doing the first portion of the seminar. He'll be discussing sort of the tools that we're using today to join into the webinar. The second session will be John Kilcommons. He's a CEO, founder of Pixel River, and he'll be discussing the BDR solutions and why it's vital to you and your company. At the end of it, we're going to have an open Q&A session, and that will be voiced, so you can either raise your hand or talk. And then throughout the session, you can use the chat function on the live recording on record.perfectvc.com. And yeah, Randy, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks. I'm going to share my content for a moment. For those of you that are watching the stream, I'm going to go through a little bit of the logistics of how to contact if something goes wrong in the midst of this. I also know that some of you are watching on mobile devices, so I'm going to turn off my camera and show content only, so you'll hear my voiceover. I'm here today to help with the logistics of the technology to deliver this webinar. Pixel River Technologies is a business partner directly of Perfect Video Conferencing. I'm one of the co-owners of Perfect Video Conferencing, and we use the Pixel River technology group to support all of our customers. So you may see our brands used interchangeably. Under the Perfect Video Conferencing brand, we specialize in a series of high-definition video conferencing solutions, and as part of how you're experiencing this today, either directly in on a laptop or a mobile device or watching a video feed, that is essentially what we do. We take the complexity of which choice of video conferencing solutions and help you decide that as a part of a unified communications infrastructure. That then becomes a whole series of products and services that can go anywhere from the mobile device to the desktop. But today, we're essentially plumbing. We're the conduit for this content provided by Pixel River, but because we are direct business partners, it made sense for us not only to showcase their great solutions, but then also to look at how we deliver this as part of the technology. So some of you have received a link to go to watch the live stream. Alex made reference to a live chat. What you'll end up by doing is clicking on the live seminar link, and then within that, I'm going to mute out my laptop so we don't all hear me. Within that, not only will you see the content, you'll have to press play to do it, but then down below there is a chat section that you can enter questions. I'll be moderating chat, and so as questions come up later, feel free to go and watch the live feed, enter questions there, or if you're in on video, you're welcome to just chime in. So I currently got a call coming in on the video unit, so I'm going to hit Do Not Disturb. Excellent. And so with that, if you've got logistics problems that you can't solve based on these preliminary instructions, I'd encourage you to just give me a call on my cell phone. Again, I'll be monitoring. We'll be muting out on our line, letting John go at this point, but my direct line is there at 516-282-2812. And John will hand the content back off to you, sir. And there you go. And I think the floor is yours. Alex, unless there are any other logistics?
Nope, John, it's all you.
Okay.
Thanks for attending. John?
So as you heard, we went through some of the logistics, and we're here to talk about backup recovery and disasters. That almost every company that I've worked with have some challenge in this space. They all seem to have their own unique way to do it, and after years of working with a number of companies, we think we have a very stable approach to help businesses with their backup and disaster and recovery. And you should feel 100% confident that at the end of the day, your data is secure and backed up. And my presentation, interesting problem. Hold on a second. Little technical difficulties here.
Not allowed, John. You are our CTO, so I think you can figure out your laptop going to sleep. We probably want to have you move your microphone just a little closer because your audio is I know you're a little more soft-spoken than I am as your big mouth business partner, but we'll need you to speak up just a little bit.
All right. So, let me get back into this content. So, basically today we're going to try to go through these 6 items that, I feel is important to review. And basically, a lot of people don't even know what the differences are between this business continuity, which is allowing your business to continue functioning after a natural disaster or any type of disaster in your building, fire, tornadoes, hurricanes, depending on where you are in the country, disaster recovery, and then backups. And I'm very interested to understand why that's happening.
It's called the webinar or seminar effect, John.
Yeah.
Salespeople are very
Everything works
familiar
on the
with
dry
that.
runs, right? So anyway, so most businesses do back up their data, and there's different options, and we'll go through that. And why you should be afraid of maybe your current solution, maybe things you haven't thought about with your current solution, and some of the impacts that you have when you make those choices. And then we'll go through some of the ways to ensure fast recovery of disaster. And then obviously, probably the most important thing is that you feel confident with the automated solution that you actually use to back up your data. So I guess one of the basic questions is, have you lost data? Have you ever been in a situation where you've worked for the last 2 weeks on an Excel spreadsheet and you thought you were backing it up and your backup solution was working, or were you able to recover a version or 2 prior because you made a mistake on the platform, or you put in the wrong information, or you ran an executable and the next thing you know you lost your data? Most of the times when I speak with customers, they almost always lose data. And it seems small at first until you start looking at it and you see how much time it takes to recover that Excel spreadsheet or that PowerPoint. So the 3 areas are basically business continuity, which is planning your business so that you can recover from a disaster. And then recovery is from the backup system that you have in place. And the biggest difference is the ability for your business to function during a failure. So business continuity is all about the ability to have you up and running, and businesses will choose, I want to be available within 5 minutes of a disaster. And in that case, we have multiple data centers that we operate with, and we can actually move customers from data center to data center. We have other customers that don't want to pay for that type of recovery, so they're okay with being down for a day or 2. And we even have customers that are okay with what I call backups. And backups are just a safe medium, and when you can recover the data, you recover it. And it's okay to be down for a couple days or a week or 2. The biggest thing you have to do is make sure that you have a plan in place. The common ways we see businesses backing up data, 1, they don't. 2, they put it on DVD, thumb drives, external drives, all of which are good. They're cheap, they're fast, they have their pros and cons, and we'll go through some of that in a minute. But at the end of the day, it's not a viable way to back up your data. A number of companies use tape backups on site, and they rotate through, and they have someone on site that's responsible for it until that person either moves or gets sick or forgets. And then probably one of the most common ways I'm seeing today, because of its expense, is just using a network attached storage device or some type of backup off-site, be that Mozy or Carbonite. And then the final one is where you use a solution of NAS for speed and virtualization to basically make backups locally and offsite, and then you have the options to recover remotely or recover on site and do it in a quick and organized fashion. So here are the pros and cons of CDs, thumb drives. I mean, it's not uncommon. They're inexpensive. There's little technical understanding required. It's not a big investment for your company. But generally, they can only back up so much data. They can only keep so much stuff organized, usually completely manual, and require someone to wait for it to go off site. So they may back it up in the morning and then they take it home with them. And a lot of business owners in the small space do that, where they just take it home with them every night, and they think that's a good way of handling it. And they can't verify that the data is backed up properly because they're just copying it to it. They don't know if it got corrupted, or if they leave it in a car and the car heats up, does it damage the device that they're storing the data on. Tapes, again, they can back up much more data. Their hardware and software are relatively inexpensive. Usually the least expensive method for large data. So, which is good because you can put a lot of megabytes or terabytes onto tapes, and it's inexpensive. And the backup process is more automated. The cons with this are someone has to manually move the tape out of the drive into a storage container. There's one tape backing up at one time. They may need multiple tapes where the guy has to wait for it to finish backing up the first tape before it goes. And generally with manual intervention, you're going to end up with problems with damaging the tape, dropping it on the floor, leaving it in a hot car, forgetting to bring it in and not backing up. And it's that one time that you forget to do it that creates the biggest risk in your business. The NAS drives are great. They're cheap, relatively inexpensive. You can actually do bare metal restores, which is great. The restores are much more successful than tape. The investment, depending on how much data you're going to be backing up, could be expensive. It does require more technical expertise on staff to manage them and install them. And with small businesses, we found most businesses just don't carry that type of talent within their shop because they primarily do some other type of business, either accounting, legal work, or a medical imaging center, doctor's office, or dentist's office. So they're not really interested in carrying technical talent to do backup. It's much cheaper and more effective for them to bring in outside consultants. The final way is a mixture between NAS and offsite storage, and that allows you to back it up quickly locally and then stream it across your internet pipes to a remote data center or multiple data centers, which is preferred. Usually there's a monthly investment involved, which is a con, to be honest, but the reality is it's money well spent. It's insurance to make sure your data is safe and in a remote location, so if you have a natural disaster in your region, you're not impacted and you can recover and get your business back online within hours or minutes, depending on what kind of system you put in place. And disasters happen. I mean, New York, we got hit with Sandy last year. We just had a group of hurricanes go through the Midwest. California, obviously, they have their own natural disasters of mudslides and fires and everything else. And when they hit, I know you got to switch over to the video. Assuming that I didn't lose it because I did lose it. These disasters, they just devastate areas. They don't, the building that was there is no longer there. If you stored your data in your home and you're hit by a tornado, your data is no longer safe. Or if you left it in the building across the street thinking that was far enough. In a tornado, as you can see, there's not much that you can do to recover your business at this point. And obviously you have other things to worry about it right after it, but at some point you're going to want to get your business back online. And when you use multiple data centers and geographical locations, obviously, we can bring the business back online, and we do deploy medical and hospital infrastructure within 30 minutes and actually get the businesses back up and running depending on the plan that the customers have chosen. So I'm sure you guys have seen all the different types of natural disaster videos out there. This one's just of a hurricane. So let me go back to the presentation. All right, I gotta turn off the video.
Or it does make for good sound over, though.
I know.
Like,
I was about to say.
Not only the sound of great content, but the good music to go with it. I think you're wise to kill the music.
All right. Let me get back to the right presentation. So this is kind of where you're going to see your failures and data loss. 44% of the time, it's not a natural disaster. It's just hardware. A drive fails. 32% of the time, it's going to be someone accidentally deleted a file, or a disgruntled employee or salesperson moves to a new company and took it, or someone just came in and stole the computer from the building. So, I mean, that's going to account for more than 60%, 70% of your data loss is going to be not even natural disaster related. And that's, it's amazing that the statistics are that high, but that's where most of your failures are going to occur. 14% is because you upgraded the system and, you didn't do it correctly and you have to roll back. And then 3% is actually natural disaster, fire, floods, earthquake, tornadoes. So that only represents 3%. And those 3% obviously can be the most devastating in that you lost your building. But if you lose the building and you didn't lose your data, you can get your business back online in a relatively quick time frame. Because you can pick a new location and move your data over. And if you virtualize everything, you literally spin it up in an afternoon. The overall average failure rate of disk and tape drives is 99%. Every drive fails. People tell me all the time, they're like, well, it's on this USB drive and it's never failed. You just haven't waited long enough. And customers, you bought it back in 2005 and it's 2013 going on 14 and it's been working great. It's in 2015 that the thing dies on you, and all you really need to do is maybe replace the drive. But not having someone manage that becomes a big component, and understand that those things actually need to be replaced and updated. It's really just the cost of business. It's a low-cost insurance policy to make sure your data is safe and secure. In the cases, these are just two examples where, the same computer was actually stolen twice. And, the data that was on there, according to the customer, cost them almost $25,000 to re-enter the data, and they actually had to do it twice. The second one is, people don't properly back up their servers, or they think they have their servers on site and everything's safe. And, the IT person that put in their SonicWall system said everything was closed down. Well, a server gets hacked and you have to reinstall your Windows server on site, and you don't have the proper backups and recoveries in place. You have to bring in specialists to deal with the data backup, and then you're recovering, and you're going to be down during that period. So hopefully it happens on a Friday and the guys are willing to work over the weekend and you can get them in there. But, the ability to restore in some of our systems are within 5 minutes. I can roll back 5 minutes ago before the hack and have the business back online. Do you still lose data in those 5 minutes? I'm sure you do, but it's far less impacting to the business because your systems are actually functioning within 5 minutes. So what do you need to have in place for a good backup recovery and a fast recovery? Well, basically it starts with a plan. You need to understand what needs to be backed up. Is every PC need to be backed up? Where is your data actually being stored? We've had businesses where we go in and do a data integrity, and we find out that they created a share on someone's desktop. Hold on a second, I have to transfer the call. And they didn't realize that the data wasn't even being stored on their server. So they're backing up the server, but the data wasn't actually on the server when they went to do the recovery because it was on someone's PC. And that just comes down to basic plan. How is your PC secured? How are they being backed up? Where is the data supposed to be stored? And is there any way for the end users, because they don't know until it's too late, that they're backing up in the wrong location or they're putting data in the wrong location? And what is your exact process to restore? And then you do your backups and you actually perform a restore from your backup to make sure it actually works. And you have to monitor and then test it and make sure it works. You have to do that fire drill and say, can I recover this server? And then recover it. And if you're unable to recover it at that point, at least then you know before you actually have lost data or you had that fire or that natural disaster came through. So doing, biannual, quarterly, depending on how many times you feel comfortable doing those tests, you do those tests. And reporting is very important. Getting those exception reports of when something didn't back up, or is the PC full, or is the backup system full. They all become critical in that phase. What kind of restores do you need? Do you need bare metal restores? Do you need to be able to restore from a blank piece of equipment? And how long does that take? And is the business willing to take that time? Because some businesses, they can't afford it. They're like, I can't be down for 15 minutes, let alone a day. So how long do you want to be up or down? How fast do you want to be recovered? Is the data being continuously backed up? Are you doing shadow copies? Are you doing incrementals so that if someone's working on a file, can I restore to like maybe 15 versions ago? Are you using virtualization to its fullest extent? I think that's been the best thing that's happened to businesses, is the ability to virtualize systems. Because now I can do all kinds of neat things where, I used to have these employees that come in and they do their own thing to their PCs, and I wouldn't know until, something happened. Then I was like, it was a custom job to fix that PC. Now I can actually wipe out with virtualization. I can wipe out on a nightly basis at no expense to the customers, and restore those systems so they're clean, so the end users don't put their Facebook account, they don't put their IM accounts on the systems, because they realize the next day it's going to be gone, and they get tired of setting them up. Or the permissions are set properly so they can't do those activities in the first place. And then, do you have a plan for emergency data shipments? Can I get the backups on site within 24 hours? Most of our businesses we try for within 4, depending on what type of data they're recovering from. So it all comes down to eliminating the risks, understanding and removing the hassles of tape backups, and finally and forever just going to a platform that's fail-safe and it just backs your systems up. And that's what we offer here at Pixel River, is the ability to basically take all your data, and I guess this slide cut off a little bit. We replicate to a local storage on your site, so you have a local copy of it, and then we back that up to the data centers. And then in the data centers, if a customer wants to, we can actually recreate through virtualization that email server. So yes, you're normally running it on your site, and I can start your system up in the data center within a request and say that now your email server, since your hardware failed on site, I can actually bring that into the data center. And if we're doing everything properly, you won't lose any email. And this is a kind of a picture of what that would look like. You have your client server, it's backing up to the on-site network attached storage, it's going to our East Coast facilities, and then our techs in the Think Tech are working and they'll restore it. So this is one of our customers that basically has used the service, and obviously he's very happy with it. So just a customer comment on that. So it really comes down to what's the cost. I mean, there's always a cost for doing backups and data recovery and having a plan in place. But what does it cost your business? Basically, the national calculations is it can cost up to $8,000 a day being out of business. And that's with your personnel, your office time, everything else, which equates to $2 million a year if you lose 20 days in a standard business. So if it takes 19 days to recover, it could be $17,000 just to recover 20 megs of data for sales data. The same volume for accounting takes 21 days, it's 19,000. Recreating from scratch, you don't even know. And some of our businesses, they can't recreate it because the patients are no longer there. So, if they lose an image, that's it. That patient's records are lost. And that's why the HIPAA requirements that we have to follow and some of the data center requirements for our security and stuff requires us to make sure that we have it in multiple locations. So some other stats that are interesting, 60% of businesses that lose their data close down within 6 months of the disaster. 72% of the businesses that suffer major data loss disappear within 24 months. So, I've added a couple more successes with clients 3 and 4. The hard drive failed on their main system. There was no available hard drives in stock. We virtualized it. Within 2 hours, they're up and running. And we replaced the local drive and imaged the server and all the changes since the crash. And only 2 hours of downtime was experienced by the customer. And there was no service charges. The other client outgrew their server and it was performing very slowly. They ordered a brand new server. We imaged the server onto the new hardware and no settings were changes. The only thing they noticed was everything was running really fast and there's no downtime, plus it was just a small invoice. So, we do guarantee our data backup guarantee. You get your money back, whatever you paid us in the service, plus we'll take on any future payments. So we back this stuff up. It's a money back guarantee. It's the best way to deal with businesses. Does anybody have any questions? I should have probably stopped in the middle there to see if there's any questions during
we did, John, to change my input. We did get a number of questions come in through chat. So, and I have, knowing your slide stack, I went ahead and unmuted all of the microphones. It looks like those that have dialed in over video have muted locally. So the bridge is now open mic and unmuted for all participants. But if you are not talking, I'd encourage you just to continue to hit your mute button if you have questions. Pop them in. I'll go ahead and if it's okay, John, just go through. I'm kind of going to combine a couple of the questions that came in, but okay. There are some that I think came in that are worth just handling separately. So let me give you those first, and then as you're answering those, I'll combine a couple of the other questions that came in over chat. One of them is, where are your data centers? Pretty practical question, and a follow-up to that one.
Sure. So the data centers are located in New York, New Jersey, and down in Phoenix.
And then the follow-up to that one was, can you tell us a little bit about the security around those and the types of data center? Question came in as you were talking about HIPAA requirements. So what are the tell me more about your security. Do you have a data center certifications? How is my data protected from others? Do other users of your services have access to my backups? I guess just a general certifications question and a little bit more about how is it secure?
So all the data centers are type 3 data centers. So basically it's all biometrics to get into the data centers physically. The systems are all obviously behind firewalls, and your data is encrypted on its own drive space and also onto tapes. The data is replicated between the data centers so that data in New York goes to Phoenix or to New Jersey, depending on the configuration. and it allows us for a faster recovery if we have a problem in New York. I think I got all those
So
right.
it's really a private cloud for their services in
Correct.
the backup system? Okay.
Yep.
And so then that leads me to kind of another question is, can I access and edit my backup options in the future? How do I future-proof this deployment? So I come in with services, what happens if my needs grow, and what kind of root access do I have? And that's from Sarah. So Sarah, if I haven't captured your question properly, go ahead and add more to the chat.
So yes, you get a console which you can manage your backups on any of your devices, and you can recover your data all through web browsers. The only time we will get involved is if we're going to activate a VM, in which case we have predefined scripts.
Okay. Certainly, if you have questions about that, we've got John's contact information on that last slide. And Sarah, you just replied on the chat. Thanks. Can you review your deployment and architecture? And there was a previous question that I'm combining with this one that sort of looks to what goes on my premise, what sits in my infrastructure. I think even a follow-up to that is who manages this? How do I need a high-end technician to do this? So let's start, John, with review the deployment architecture. What happens at my site? What happens at yours? And then who touches it, when, where, and how?
So most of our customers, we put in a local storage device, which will cover their needs for 30 days. And it'll store a local copy of the data for up to 30 days, which is continuously streamed to the data centers, at which point we can store that indefinitely, up to 50 years.
And then one of the chat questions that I combined was, if you've got if you've got those security certificates, can we get access to them? I know the answer to that because we use that on the PVC side all the time is yes, but under NDA, obviously, you've got lots of requirements on your side to be secure, and those aren't certs that you just hand out to anyone, but absolutely, John has furnished those. It doesn't sound terribly technical, John, so anyone on the IT staff can manage this, or is this someone you have to train? What's the needs from an IT staff perspective locally? Well,
locally, there's very little staff requirements, other than training the individuals on how to do the recoveries, which can be looking at almost a folder on your computer, so it's not highly technical from that perspective. We generally manage everything remotely, and then if we have issues on site, we can deploy someone, depending on the SLAs, within 2 hours to your site to work on systems. So you don't need anybody technical, basically.
Excellent. Why don't we, if you don't mind, John, bring up the slide of the, for the recording purposes, I want to have the slide of the contact information, because we're sort of fading on any of the text questions. I think the contact was, yeah, I think you got it. All right. Yeah, so for recording purposes, if you're watching this later, your initial primary point of contact to that will be John. If you've got any questions about the video conferencing or the technology that's actually delivering this, talk to me, Randy, and then if you don't want to talk to either of us, Alex is the one who kicked us off on this and her contact information. Is there a question came into me over email, John? How do we discuss pricing, or what does this scale like? What's your entry-level service cost? Is it an annual upfront? Is it monthly? So I think implied in that is how much, how big, how often, or how do I get pricing?
Yeah, we have customers that are, as low as $100 a month for services, no upfront costs, and then we have customers that have different solutions. So we pretty much custom build the platforms. For the most part, a medium-sized business, maybe a cost of entry is a new server on your site for the NAS, and then that could run around $2,500, and then a monthly maybe of $250 to $300 to do a backup of maybe 40 to 50 gigs.
Yeah, I think that question came in as you were talking, I think, about the hospital deployment. So I'm glad to hear you talk a little bit about pricing, because I don't want to knowing a little bit about the services, I wanted to make sure people know that this scales to, small businesses who just want to make sure that they've got a secure backup solution to very, very large enterprise deployments to make sure that they've got a plan B in place. So as far as economies of scale go, I think what I'm hearing in that, John, is you're willing to guarantee it, but then you're also willing to come up with something that fits the business size. It's not a one size fits all model. Okay.
Correct.
Good. I'm going to go back to monitoring the chat. I'll move the camera over to you and Alex to see if there's any wrap up. I don't know if anyone on the audio side of this wants to chime in if there are any unresolved questions. So, Alex, go back to my presets and pass that off to you to see if there are any wrap up items. And again, I'm off screen monitoring chat to see if anything comes in.
Anybody over video have any questions? Mel, Lorraine?
Going once.
Once and twice.
Guest 2 has said they're all set. Thanks. Looks like Sarah's dropped off. So I think we could, John, I think if there's nothing else, you guys want to wrap up?
Yeah,
that'd
with
be
2
great.
minutes left, if there's no more questions, then thank you all for joining. And since it is recorded, I'll be sending out the recording to everybody so you can watch it again or share it with anybody you want to share it with.
We'll post this up on our Facebook pages and social media contact too, which is a good way of finding out what's new, relevant, and hot between not only us but our business partners. So check us out online. And again, if you get stuck, confused, or just want to talk to a really nice person, give Alex a call. She's at 516-282-2880, and your extension is
345.
Great. All right, John, hit the stop on recording. And for those of you who feel like